Hi, hey, hello. My name is Naomi, if you didn't guess already, and welcome or welcome back to my channel and also my bed. Once again, we are here in my bedroom. A few things before I start with this. I already recorded this. I spent an hour of my life recording this video, only to find that I had technical issues that I couldn't fix, so I had to delete the entire thing. This is also late for a couple of reasons. The first is that I work in a pub. The holiday season is very busy. So I've been very busy with work, with seeing friends, with seeing my partner, and also trying to see family in all of this. And then after New Year's, I have just been busy doing things and stuff and still trying to see people, still trying to like make time for everything and also make time for myself so that I can relax and de-stress after everything to do with the holidays. Um, and I also only finished my last book of the year like 10 minutes before I had to leave for work on New Year's Eve. So it's fine. Everything's fine. Also, if you have been here from the very start on this channel, and I mean like before my content changed a million times, like the deleted videos that aren't available anymore, like the very beginning, then you will know that I used to wear cat ears in all of my videos, and I thought like I'm dressed pretty much like fully in black today, might as well sport some black cat ears as well. So we're doing it. I'm hoping that like my hair is not going to interfere with this on my chest because I don't want to hold it today. But I'm going to go through a very quick like list of what I read in the first half of this year. And if you want a more like in-depth rundown and what I actually rated those books, there is a video available on the channel. You can go watch that and then come back here. You can watch this first and then go there. I don't really mind which way you do it. Just watch them both, I guess. I'm entertaining enough. Maybe, possibly, potentially. So I read this year, I have a notebook with things and stuff in it. I read I Follow You by Peter James. I still want to reread this. I am going to reread it at some point and then do like a whole like full rundown on this book because it is insane. It is crazy. At no point did I know what was coming next. If you've never read a Peter James book, like I hadn't, start with this one. Why not? Because I want to read more of Peter James now. Now that I have read this and experienced this, I want to read more of it. So, would recommend 100%, but that is what I started the year with. We were starting off strong. And then I read the entire Hush Hush series. So it's Hush Hush, Crescendo, Silence, and then Finale. I read, I was like, I thought the first like three, but the first two, no, I read the first three because I remembered very small details about each and every one of those three books. And one of those details was only in Silence, even though I didn't remember like anything else that happened in these books. I am obsessed with them and I will never stop recommending them, even though they are a little bit older, they're a little bit dated. I still will never stop recommending these books. I love them so much and I will read them again at some point. Like, this is now going to be like my comfort read. Every time I need something, every time I'm in a slump, this is what it's going to be. And then it was, so I read, so that was like five books. And then I read Exciting Times by Nisha Dolan. This one disappointed me. This one was such a letdown after reading that series. But I finished it and it was fine. I mean, read it if you want to, but I probably wouldn't recommend it, honestly. Then after that, I was like, okay, I need something that's going to be good. So I read Tate, which is a DDLG romance book, 18 plus, and it is book 10 of the Daddies of the Shadow series, which I'll get onto a little bit more soon. But I read this one because it is a spin-off from like the first like nine people in this series. Like, he's not related to them, so you get a couple cameos, but I didn't really feel like I was missing out on a lot, and I was just like, you know what, like it seems pretty cute, like I might as well read it. um yeah, if you've never read like a DDLG romance book and you want to, I would say maybe start with Tate or maybe start with like the actual first book in the series because I think that they're pretty cute and they're a pretty good representation of it, even if it's not a brilliant representation of it. Um, then was two Doctor Who books because I have a lot of Doctor Who books that I've collected throughout my life. I read Sting of the Zygons by Stephen Cole, and then I read The Last Dodo by Jacqueline Rayner. Um, and then I read Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. I don't have my physical copy of this because I lent it to a friend. She hasn't read it yet. I think that she's reading it soon though. It's a very sad book, and it's one of those books where, like, if you haven't read it, I would recommend that everyone read it at some point in your life, because it is so sad, and you have so much empathy for Charlie and like the situation that he's going through. And I think that it just shows a lot of like nuance to certain situations that, like, just read it, okay? Just read it and you'll understand what I mean. And then I read Love Lessons by Jacqueline Wilson. I don't have much to say about that. I don't have much to say that I didn't already say in the other video. Don't read it. is my conclusion for that. And I left off that video saying that I was reading The Exorcist, which would be my 12th book of the year. I did finish The Exorcist. It's like over 600 pages. I don't have the physical copy because I borrowed it from my favorite customer, my friend at work. Um, but yeah, so The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. I rated it 5 stars. I was like teetering on the edge of 4.5 or 4.75, and then the very ending of it pushed it over to 5 stars for me. I've never seen the film. I don't know if I'm ever going to watch the film, maybe, possibly, but um yeah, I enjoyed it. You really, really feel for Regan and like what she's going through, but you feel for every single character at the same time. Like, you feel for the mom, you feel for the priest, you feel for like the friends that are involved, you feel for every single person in this situation. And it's just like, it starts off so slow, and I hated the chapter lengths. I will say that I am a short chapter kind of person, and when you give me a 60-page chapter, I am crying. I'm going to read it, but I'm crying while I'm doing it, because I like a nice place to leave off. And the amount of times, like, during those long chapters where I was like, you could have cut it off here and started a new chapter. You could have done that, and you just didn't. Why didn't you do that? But it's fine. It was still 5 stars. I don't have the like blurb of it, but the version that I had was like the 40th anniversary edition or something. So it said that it had some extra content. I don't know what was extra, but I still enjoyed the book. And I would recommend that you read it if you've never read it before. But if you've watched the film, I've seen a lot of people say that it doesn't compare because it is quite slow. So if you've never watched the film, maybe read the book first. Then I read this, which has also been on my shelves for a long time. I think that I picked this up like in high school, in the works or something. Like, I had a sticker, I removed it. It's still gross in that corner from the sticker. But Beneath the Skin by Caroline England, it says, "No one remembers your past, but you do." And then on the back, it says, "The lies start small, they always do. Antonia, it's been her name for many years, but sometimes, like tonight, she forgets. Antonia has a secret so dark and deep that she can barely admit it to herself. Instead, she treats herself to Friday night sessions of self harm while her husband David is at the pub and her best friend Sophie is drinking too much wine a few doors down. Nobody close to her knows the truth about what she saw all those years ago. No one, that is, except her mother. But Candy is in a care home now, her mind too confused to remember the truth. Antonia is safe, isn't she?" Now, from that, you would think that this is going to be all about Antonia and this secret that she's hiding, that she's keeping to herself. No, you would be wrong, because I was wrong. I also thought that. No, instead, I think there's like 3 parts in this, maybe 2, but I'm pretty sure it's 3. Um, you follow like 3 different couples. You follow like 6 different people in this book, and you follow their lives and how they like intertwine with each other. And I will say right now, if you are triggered by self-harm, I know that it mentions it on the back, but I wasn't expecting the first 2 pages of it to be like an in-depth description of it. You don't really see it much more throughout the book. It's just that right at the start, and it was intense. It was a very intense way to start a book. But yeah, like, I liked this book. I rated it 3.25, and I rated it 3.25 mainly because it wasn't what it said it was going to be. It was still like decent. The secret was kind of a letdown though, that you only find out right at the end what that is. But there isn't much build up to it. Like, you kind of just hear like, oh, she has a secret. She had a life before the one that she currently has. But the amount of things that happen, I was like, why is it in parts? And then it makes sense. The start of part 2, it makes sense why it's in parts. It's only 361 pages long. So like it's not mega long. I honestly feel like it would have benefited though from being more about Antonia and her secret and the life that she had like before this. Like if we got some more backstory to that instead of just going the whole book following multiple different couples, not really having a reason why we're following them because it doesn't tell you that you're going to be following them. And then at the very end to have this secret revealed, it was just odd. And I felt like Antonia as a character was very flat. There wasn't really much depth to her. There was depth to other people, just not to her herself. So, like, I mean, if you want to read it, go ahead and read it. It was still a good book. It was just odd. It was just very, very odd. And then I read It by Stephen King. I rated this 4 stars. I might go and like amend that at some point. I'm not entirely sure because like it is a very long book. It is 1,166 pages. Again, this was something that I borrowed from my favorite customer at work. And it took me 60 days of reading to get through this book. that is that is a long time. So I wrote down like how many books I finished in each month. And this isn't that I started them and then finished them in that month, unless there's like multiple books. Usually I started them like the month before or whatever and then finished them. So in January, I finished 2 books. In February, I finished one. In March, I didn't finish anything. I read for like 2 days of March. I was like in such a huge slump. Yeah, I was on silence at that point and I just like wasn't really feeling the start of that book, but I loved it by the end. It was just like a pretty weird start, and I just wasn't in the place to be like reading that right now. I feel like there's a hair like on my lip, and I can feel it. Um, in April, I finished 1 book. In May, I finished 4. I was just a reading machine in May. June, I finished 3. July, I finished 2. August and September, I didn't finish anything because I was reading it, and it's so long, and it took me so long to finish. In October, I finished 4 books. In November, I finished 3, and then in December, I finished 2. So although it is very long, every single part of it makes sense. Every single chapter, every single interaction that happens, every single situation that they find themselves in as children and as adults makes sense. And everything comes together to form like the whole like drama at the end of the book. And you kind of need all of that background. Well, there's only like one point that I felt didn't really matter for the end of the book and the context that you would need for that. So like overall, pretty much like 90% of the book, I was like, this all needs to happen. This all makes sense. And there was just like one part that didn't. Now the chapters are very long, but they're also split up into like 1, 2, 3. Like it's split up into little parts, which I really appreciated as well because I'm just like, oh my god, that makes it so much easier for me. Um, and the main reason why it lost points for me is the scene. And if you don't know what the scene is, I'm not going to tell you. I do think it's important you know what it is before you go into reading this book, but you can very easily find out about it online. Um, and the thing is, I understand that scene. I understand the symbolism behind it. I understand that it's like the fact that, they've been through some stuff and now they're not kids anymore and their innocence is gone and whatever. I understand that. There are so many other ways that he could have symbolized it. There are so many other things that he could have done that weren't that scene. That is my issue with it. Is that like, yes, I understand the symbolism, but there are so many other directions that he could have taken it. So many other directions. So I am glad that I read it. It was very hefty and very big, and it took me a long time to finish. But like overall, I still hit my reading goal. Like I hit my reading goal with The Exorcist. My reading goal in 2024 was 12 books. I didn't hit that. So I set the same goal again last year and I read 22 books. Sorry, in total. So after it, I had my birthday and I got for my birthday a Kindle. And I got 3 months of Kindle Unlimited for free. So I read a lot of Kindle books. The rest of these I read on here. So the first one that I read was Unhinged by Viva Valentine. Now this says, right, all of these are like 18 plus, by the way. Every single one of them. This is an erotic door romance. So about this book, let me read this to you. Danger's come a knocking. Someone's been watching Tana closely, but he's a lot closer than she realizes. From intimate moments to lazy afternoons on the couch, he's secretly seen it all. and fallen for her along the way. The problem is that somebody else is watching too, and his obsession with Tana is a lot more dangerous. When a man claiming to be her front door enters her dreams to warn her about an imminent threat to her life, Tana initially chalks it up to the weird late night snacks, but she rethinks things when her earnest visitor insists he's also ready to protect her in exchange for one hell of a favor. When Tana trains her best life of def- when Tana trades her best line of defense for an unlikely supernatural ally, the threat lurking beyond her apartment hallway starts getting desperate as the door closes in. Can her inhuman companion save her from the worst of humanity, or is it too late for both of them? Now, that is a very long description of this book. That is a very long thing for something that is 80 pages long. The amount of things that happen in this book, I I am unable to comprehend. I rated this 3.5. Look, it was decent. It was a decent little story. I don't know what kind of dreams Vera Valentine is having, but like, girl, I need to be on whatever you're on because like, what was this? The so much happens, so much, and I don't even know where to start with it. You follow Tana, who lives in an apartment, and you follow her front door, who is sentient, and she does things with the door because it's American, so there's doorknobs instead of handles. Don't think like a British person, okay? Um, because like that's not what happens, okay? And the dedication, I'm going to read you this dedication because this is hilarious. This one's for the reader that declared in a Facebook group that she uses Control and F to search for the word cock at the start of a story to make sure she doesn't get tricked into reading a closed door romance by mistake. Shine bright, you smutty diamond. The world needs more women like you. It's in here 14 times, by the way, which ain't half bad. On on a book about a door that is 80 pages long. I mean, it's a very interesting story, and if you have been seeing this around and you're just like, I'm not gonna read it, read it. Everyone should read it at some point. It lost points because it's so short, because so much happens, because like sometimes it doesn't make sense, and also because sometimes like the sentences change like halfway through, so it's like past tense and then present tense, and it just doesn't make sense when it happens. And there's like issues with like spelling and grammar and punctuation and all that. So like that loses points for me because I like books to be like full on. Okay, so after Unhinged was Knox by Kate Oliver. So all of the Daddies of the Shadows series is from Kate Oliver. This is Knox. This is the first book. So after Kate, I went and I was like, okay, I'll read the whole series. So I started with Knox, which is the first book. This is 284 pages long. So it's quite a bit longer than Tate, which was 160. And the reason for that is because it's introducing everybody. It's introducing the eight brothers. It's introducing the dad. It's introducing absolutely everyone. So, like Leo is the dad, and the only biological son in this whole thing is Bo. Everyone else was adopted as like teenagers. So, but they all call him Pop. They're all like a family. They all do things together. Book description. So this is pretty much like at the start of every single one. And it just kind of goes into a little bit of like who the entire group are. So sometimes the law isn't enough to protect the vulnerable. Sometimes someone has to step in no matter what the consequences. Sometimes doing what's right isn't always legal. Sometimes it's dark and dirty and dangerous. Men like that need somewhere to call home, and what better place than an exclusive nightclub where money and drinks flow freely? Most of the patrons are there to satisfy their urge to drink and be seen. Others are there to keep an eye out for those who need help. Welcome to the Brotherhood. Welcome to the Shadows. So I think it's Maddox that owns the bar. Bo owns the gym, Knox owns a gun shop, Ash owns a shooting range. Like they all own their own things, which plays into the stories quite a bit. It says Knox, when she came in to buy a gun, I knew she was in trouble. This isn't my first rodeo. What I didn't expect was to have my daddy senses go into high gear. And then Addison, my life was going well until I got the call that my past was coming to haunt me. Although I don't want it, I may have to accept help from a man who calls my little side. He's dark and dangerous, and he would never understand my needs, but he says he will protect me, and I can use all the help I can get. So we follow, obviously, Knox and Addison as they meet, as they go through the whole relationship. The content warnings says this book is a daddy dom little girl age play romance. Age play falls under the BDSM umbrella. The MMC in this book is a daddy dom, and the MFC identifies as a little. This is an act of role playing between the characters. This is a consensual power exchange relationship between adults. In this story, there are spankings and discussions of other forms of discipline. There is also talk about adult diapers, and the MFC uses a pacifier, a bottle, and a sippy cup in this story. Please do not read this story if you find any of this to be disturbing or a trigger for you. So like all of them pretty much have that as well with like what the MFC is going to use in the book and all that. And I will say it's written in the way that like okay, so for example, like chapter 1 it says curling her hands around the steering wheel of a Mini Cooper, Addison stirred up at the house she'd grown up in. Like it's written like that in like that kind of perspective, and I know that some people don't like that. So if that isn't for you, then this entire series isn't for you. Personally, I don't really mind it too much. It doesn't really bother me. I am not into this kind of man, by the way. I imagine them all so differently because I'm not into the whole like big muscles kind of thing. Not really my type, but I do love these books. This was so freaking cute. You get to know absolutely everybody. It introduces like just all of them together. You get a little bit of backstory of how they got into the kind of business that they do in the shadows, um, and like what happened in their lives. So Addison's thing is that her ex is being released from prison. She was gonna have like 4 more years to figure it out. But he's being released early for good behavior, even though he was sentenced for almost killing her and then threatened when he did get sentenced to come after her when he was released. But they're like, it's okay, you've got a restraining order on him, he's not going to come anywhere near you. Like, that does anything. So she goes to buy a gun, she meets Knox. The whole thing about like underwear being wet is so prevalent in these books. It's kind of funny. But like, I feel like in this one, the sex scenes and the non-sex scenes kind of like worked really well. You get to see like a little bit of an understanding of how the kind of dynamic works. But yeah, so like the whole drama is her ex is being released and he's gonna come after her. So she wants some protection, and then like she owns a clothing store, Knox owns a gun shop, like he takes her to the shooting range where she meets Ash, and it's like a whole thing. Like you get introduced to so many people, you get introduced to so many situations, and even though it's not for people who don't already know what DDLG is, like if you know what it is, you'll understand the book a lot more. If you don't, it kind of does just like throw you into it. Um it's still very cute, and I still would recommend it if you want to read those kind of books. Like I would recommend this entire series, honestly. After Knox, I read Maeve Fly, which I was supposed to be like, I've got like dead skin on my lip, sorry. I was supposed to be like joining a book club in real life. It didn't pan out for me and my schedule and like what I end up doing in work and things. But I knew that they'd picked this and I read it and I rated this 1.5 stars. It is 289 pages, and honestly, I feel like it would have been benefited from being longer. The Maeve is so flat, so inconsistent. She doesn't make any sense. None of the decisions that she makes have any sort of sense to them. And a lot of the reviews will say that ending was so stupid. And I agree, the ending was so stupid. The ending pushed it down further than it already was. Like I was gonna rate it higher, the ending pushed it down. It was so stupid. Um about this book, and I'm telling you right now, this description sounds so good for a book that's so bad. And also it mentions American Psycho. I've never read that. But I know that some people said that they had read it and that there was like barely anything similar about these books. It says a provocative blood-soaked slasher about unsung villainesses, a nightmarish blend of Eric LaRocca meets American Psycho. By day, Maeve Fly works at the happiest place in the world as every child's favorite ice princess. By the neon night glow of the Sunset Strip, Maeve haunts the dive bars with a drink in one hand and a book in the other, imitating her misanthropic literary heroes. But when Gideon Green, her best friend's brother, moves to town, he awakens something dangerous within her, and the world she knows suddenly shifts beneath her feet. Untethered, Maeve ditches her discontented act and tries on a new persona, a bolder, bloodier one, inspired by the pages of American Psycho. Step aside, Patrick Bateman, it's Maeve's turn with the knife. Now, I don't know what everybody was reading who rates this book good. I don't know what they were reading because clearly it wasn't the same thing that I was reading. Like, she makes no sense. She's so flat. She's like, you can't connect with her character because you get zero backstory. And that's why I think it would have benefited from being longer, because you get so many moments where she mentions her childhood and why she is the way that she is, but you never figure it out why. You never find out why. You never find out. You never figure out what happened in her childhood that made her the way that she is. You never get to see anything. All you know is some stuff about her grandma who's in a coma, um, and like the relationship that she had with her grandma, which also was really, really weird, and it's never really explained why her grandma is the way that she is. And then the end of the book is just so stupid. Nothing that she does makes sense. None of the like reasons that she gives behind the actions that she takes makes sense. Nothing makes sense. Everything is flat. Everything is like so disjointed. It's just, don't read the book, okay? Don't read it. Don't read it. Don't. I put a lot more like cohesive thoughts together in my actual review of this on Fable. Just don't read this book, please. I am begging you. And I had to pay for that as well. Like, it wasn't on KU, and I am so sad. I am so upset that I had to pay for it because it was so bad. But that was my 17th book of the year. So book 18 was I Will Break You by Gigi Sticks. This is 584 pages long. I rated it 4.75. And the reason that I rated it 4.75 is I didn't like that certain phrases were used so much. Like, don't get me wrong, okay? You can use phrases as much as you want to, and other people do not realize that this is a thing. And I know that because my favorite customer was also reading this at the same time that I was, and he didn't realize that those phrases were used as much as they were. But I felt like I was constantly reading the phrases of like, oh, like all the fine hairs on the back of my neck stood on end and things like that. And it kind of put me off a little bit. Like, it kind of took me out of it. Um, and other than that, there was so much smut, and sometimes it didn't make sense for there to be that much smut, in my personal opinion. But anyway, book description: my prison pen pal got the electric chair, so how can he sext me from the grave? Pray, I see dead people, and not just the man I murdered. I'm in danger of being committed because I can't tell what's real from my hallucinations. Everyone thinks I'm crazy when the serial killer I jilted starts haunting my house. He assassinates any man who shows me interest, leaving their body parts under my pillow. During the day, his gaslighting destroys my peace of mind, but at night he invades my nightmares and makes me crave the depravity. Predator. She ghosted me at the altar. Now I'm aching for revenge. I want to break her, piece by delicious piece, revel in her terror, bathe in her screams, make her moan my name. Someone from her past wants us captured or dead, so it's up to me to protect her from the shadows. She belongs to me and no one else, body, mind, and soul. If you don't if I don't take out her enemies, I'll lose more than just my beautiful obsession. So you follow Amethyst, who was writing to a committed serial killer, Zero, in prison while he was on death row. He was found with his like stepmom's like heart still in his hand. So like, he's guilty. He's guilty, guilty. Everyone knows this, she knows this, and she writes to him basically saying, like, hey, I murdered someone as well. Um I'm not going to go into the details of that because obviously I would recommend this book. I absolutely loved it. I am obsessed with it. I will read it again. I'm going to buy the physical copy because I like physical books, and I'm not doing it as a Kindle trophy. I'm doing it because I do want to read this again, and I would love to have the physical copy of this and the second book. Um, but you kind of go through this whole thing where even as you're reading it, you don't know what's real and what's not. You can't quite piece together what is real, what's a hallucination, what's not, like what is going on. And you start to question your own logic as you're reading it because it messes with your head so much. And I love it. I love when books can pull that kind of thing off. Like, so much in the stuff happens in this book, and at the start you get like a mix of like chapters from like Amethyst's point of view and like what she's going through in her day-to-day life, and then letters that Zero sent her from prison, so you get a bit of his backstory and like what they talked about and the things that they experienced together while he was still in prison. You find out why she left him at the altar, why she missed his execution, and just a lot of stuff happens. Like, it starts off kind of slow, like you're getting to know her, you're getting to know what she's been through in life, you're getting to know like their relationship, and then it just kind of kicks off. And brilliant, definitely 10 out of 10 would recommend. It genuinely was just like mainly the phrases being overused that like put my rating down. But then because I didn't have because I needed a break to like process that, I read Ash. So the second book in the Daddies of the Shadow series. Here he is. Here's Ash. um, so I read this. This is 244 pages long, and I rated it 5 stars. Now, look, I am very generous with my ratings if you can't already tell. Like, certain books don't get a generous rating, like Mayfly, that did not deserve one. But books like this, I do give generous ratings to. Kylie, in high school, he saved her from a bully who had cornered her at a party that she shouldn't have even been at. Then he called her little girl and threatened to spank her bottom if she wasn't more careful with her safety. She was the dorky girl with glasses and braces, and he was her secret crush, the bad boy that all girls swooned over. And even though they hadn't spoken since that night, she still fantasized about being put over his knee. Ash. He was the bad boy then, and the label still fits. But now he only did bad things to help those who needed his protection. He had been called daddy many times over the years, but no one had affected him like the little girl from his past, who was standing in front of him at the club, drinking and telling him that she had been fantasizing about him since high school. So you start off in the club. Kylie has gone out to meet a daddy that she found online. She's feeling very lonely. She's like wanting that kind of connection in her life. And he stands her up. So she ends up at the club that Ash's brother owns. Ash sees her and is like goes over. She's like drunk. You know, he's like so annoyed at the bartender for serving her still. And then she falls over and he catches her. He like takes her home. It's a whole thing. At some point, Kylie gets hurt, and that's why this gets 5 stars for me, because of the way that it's treated when she gets hurt. You get to see how some of the other brothers would act with a little, and it's so freaking cute. Like you get to see like Maddox especially, and like I haven't read Maddox, but I really, really want to. Maddox is up next, and I'm back on physical books for a bit. So I'm gonna read a couple books that I already own, and then I'm probably gonna buy the physical book of Maddox because I do want to buy these in physical because I would reread them. The only one that I probably wouldn't reread is Wolf, but we'll get into that. So you see like how Ash treats her and how the other brothers treat her, and it's the cutest thing. And you see a little bit more of Tate as well. Like Tate makes an appearance in these books, but again, he is a spin-off, so you get to see like kind of like where he comes into it and how he knows the brothers a little bit. But yeah, like if you aren't going to read any of the others, she does recommend that you read them in order, but you can read them as standalones. If you're not going to read any of the others, read Ash. Read Ash. Like, just trust me on this and read Ash. And then I didn't have anything else installed. I was supposed to install a different book, but I had Bow installed. So I read Bow next, which is book 3 of the Daddies of the Shadow series. There he is. There's Bow. And this is 254 pages long and also got 5 stars for me. So this one, I'll read the about and then I'll tell you like what I think about it. So Emma, that night 7 years ago, had been the worst night of her life. She'd have been attacked and probably would have been killed if it weren't for him, Bo, the man who had killed for her. Of course, she still had forgot. She had of course she had never forgotten him, and now she was ready to find him to thank him in person. What she hadn't expected was how her body reacted to his presence and how his dominant personality made her finally feel safe. Bo. When she walked into his gym, Bo recognized her at once. It had been 7 years, and not a day had gone by without wondering if she was okay. But the eyes that looked back at him now weren't those of the wounded child he had rescued that night. She was an adult now, and everything about her made his protective daddy instincts come to life. And he knew that the little girl he'd been searching for had found him. Could he convince her that he was the daddy she so badly needed? So the thing about this, right, that sounds creepy. It's not, I swear to you, it's not. He's locking up the gym one night. He hears a shout for help. He runs over, and it's Emma, and she is being attacked. Like, she's going to be essayed and potentially murdered by this man. Bo saves her. She is 15 at the time, and then he sees like extra bruises on her. I don't think this is like a spoiler because it's like the prologue of it. He sees extra bruises on her, and he's like, where did they come from? She reveals that she's in foster care, and he kind of makes a promise to tell somebody and get into a better situation. Unfortunately, that means that she moved away, so she never got to thank him. So 7 years later, she comes back, she finds him at the gym, and the connection is just instant. But she doesn't know anything about DDLG. She is completely oblivious to it. The whole drama in this one is different because in Ash you start seeing a little bit of this one where it's about dogfighting. Um, so it's different, but it makes sense at the same time. And Bo has this dog called Cinnamon, and she's so freaking cute. Um, but Emma starts to question Addie and Kylie on their relationships and what it means and things. And it's kind of odd. Like someone else mentioned it in a review as well, where like it would have made sense for this story to be first in the series, so you get the explanation and you get someone coming into it who's completely new to it. But it also wouldn't have made sense with the timeline of things because like as you go through these books, you experience different holidays. So you go through Halloween and then you go through Christmas with these people, and like one book continues from the next. Like there's not really much time difference between them. So yeah, it just kind of didn't make sense for the third book to give you this description in its contents when, like, if you're here, you already know what it is, and you've probably already read the other books in the series. But it was still extremely cute, and like the whole relationship and the drama made sense. It was not as like high stakes as it could have been if it was to do with people like the other books were, but at the same time, like with Bo and his character, it just felt right for it to be a bit different. So yeah, I absolutely love each and every single one of these like relationships and the situations in these books. After that, you get a little bit of a snippet at the end of these books about the next one. So I moved straight onto Wolf because I was like, okay, we've seen Wolf in these books so far. We have seen this man. I personally, sorry to this guy, but like this is the least attractive one of the lot in my personal opinion and preferences for men. Um, but you see so much of Wolf and how he is with the littles that are in his life, and you get so excited to see him with his own little. And honestly, I was let down. I was so let down. This is the only book that I was let down with. I rated it 3.75. It is 254 pages long. Let me read the book description. Lucy thought her life couldn't get any worse after becoming homeless, until she found herself forced to sleep alone at a dark and scary construction site after being beaten and robbed of her last few possessions. All she'd ever wanted was a normal life, whatever that meant, and to be loved and cared for. Sadly, she'd discovered early that she wasn't likely to ever get what she wanted, but that never stopped her from dreaming and wishing for a better future, maybe one day. Wolf. People think he looks like a monster, and he can be when it comes to protecting those he cares about. But on the inside, Wolf is all heart, and what he really wants and hopes for is someone who can look past his scary exterior and come to crave the love, care, and protection he can provide. Although he's pretty sure that isn't in the cards because of the darkness inside of him, he envies what his brothers have with their littles. It will take a special person to break through the dark shell that he's built around himself. Can two people from tragic backgrounds come together and teach each other how to really live again? So like from that, you'd think that this was going to be like so cute and so special. And if you read the other ones, you do think that it's going to be super cute. Like Wolf is very protective of the littles. He's very much like no running in the house, like no running up the stairs, like don't do anything that's going to injure you. And I thought that like out of all of them, that this would be the one that would have more of like a baby headspace little and have like adult diapers and things. And it doesn't. It doesn't. Um, but Wolf owns a construction business, so it's his construction site. He leaves his laptop behind one day, he goes back and he finds Lucy. And he immediately is just like, whoa, like I'm scaring her. I'm big, I'm scary, like she's terrified. But he gets her into his truck and he takes her home. You pretty much immediately find out that she's a little because she talks to Addie and Kylie. Like he invites them over, and Emma. Like he invites the littles over to kind of like comfort her and show like, oh, Wolf isn't exactly the way he looks. and they start like squealing, and everyone's like, what is going on? And they're just like, oh, she's a little too. And then Wolf is just like, oh shit, like I am in trouble having this little in my house. But he's not gonna let her leave until he figures out how to like fix her life and get her onto like a decent track. You find out that she's homeless because of some stuff that happened with her brother. Like she was living with him, he was in control of her finances, something happened with the finances. But it follows Christmas and like Wolf's issues with Christmas and surrounding the holiday season. So I read it at the right time of year, but you've missed out on so many of the activities that are listed. Like it talks about like going on so many different like days out and having all of these things together. But what you actually have is just so much smut. There is more in this than any of the others, and it does not make sense. It takes away from everything else in this book. It genuinely does. Like everything that happens between them in terms of like bedroom stuff takes away from everything else. And Wolf is also just mean. Like he's just mean. He's not nice to Lucy. The amount of times that I thought like that I find myself being like, she would be so much better off if she went and got with somebody else. He was mean. And also, like, if you read this and you don't gag at the use of the word honey the way that I did, we are not on the same wavelength. I'm just gonna say that. So yeah, Wolf let me down quite a lot, but it is what it is. And then the last book that I read this year was I Will Mend You by Gigi Sticks. So I Will Break You and I Will Mend You both have just over 2 pages of trigger warnings, and it is very important that you read them. And I do really appreciate the way that Gigi does it, because it will say like, for example, the first trigger warning is abortion, and then in brackets it says backstory, and there's like side character backstory, whatever. And I really appreciate that, because you know exactly what you're getting into, instead of just being like, oh, is this going to be a mention of it? Is it going to be a full description of it? You kind of know already. But I Will Mend You. I'll try and put a time either on the screen or like in the description or something of where to skip to if you don't want to hear about this a little bit, because it does spoil certain things from the first book. However, I will say before you do that, the way that trauma is written in this, I think is brilliant. I've never seen trauma written quite like this before. And the way that I could relate to so many things to do with that trauma, like I found myself crying, and not because I was upset, not because it was triggering me, but because I was relating to it. Like at one point Amethyst says, but I'm tired of being traumatized, and I'm just like, same, I feel that so deep in me. And I was very careful with the triggers and knowing that I could potentially be triggered in this book. Thankfully I wasn't, and I knew that I could walk away if I needed to. But yeah, so I'm going to try and put a time on or something to skip to if you don't want to hear like the book description or a little bit more about this book. So, about this book. My worst nightmare finally stepped out of the mirror, and the only man that who can save me is a ghost. Pray. I'm trapped in a forgotten nightmare with a monster I most fear. The key to my freedom lies behind a wall of memories. Zero Spectre invades my mind, whispering both vengeance and salvation. He insists he's real, yet I can't trust my shattered psyche. But as my tormentors draw close, I must rely on the phantom I betrayed for protection and for revenge. Predator. She's ensnared by darkness, and only I can set her free. To save her, I must become the vengeful spirit she fears. Amethyst's mind is a maze of terror and confusion. Freeing her will mean confronting the darkest parts of my past. Vengeance will be mine, but first I must earn redemption, because if I fail to save my little ghost, I will reduce the world to ashes. It's very sweet, very cute, in certain ways. The way that Zero treads around the trauma and treats it is brilliant. It's beautiful. Like there is such a contrast between how he is in the first book and how he is in the second book, that it's kind of like he's two completely different people. But what you actually see is that he was so focused on the way that he felt at being left at the altar in the first book, that he didn't get to be this person in this book. There's not a lot of smut until quite late into it, because of everything that Amethyst goes through and the trauma that she experiences. And honestly, I love that. Like, I got asked, like, is the first or the second book better? And you can't really compare them. Like, I don't know if I said, this is 566 pages and I rated it 4.75. I rated it 4.75 because there's like one scene that I was just kind of like, that's a little bit odd. Um, I didn't really feel comfy. Um, and then also like there was again certain phrases that was overused in my opinion, but that is just my personal opinion. I still would reread this book. I still would recommend this, like both of these books. Um, as long as you focus on the trigger warnings and you actually take them into consideration and are serious about taking them into consideration. But yeah, so this one, there's so many scenes that focus on trauma and the way that it feels and the way that like flashbacks can just hit you and things. And it's so real and relatable, especially for someone who has experienced the same kind of trauma. Um, in a lot of senses, it's so relatable. And obviously she gets over it quite quickly. It's a fictional book. It's not going to be like 5,000 pages long just to go through the actual process of getting over trauma. And the way she gets over it makes sense for the context of the book. Um, I think that the when the smut finally does kick in, it's done in a very good way. It's done in a way that makes a lot of sense. You get to see a lot more of the characters from the first book and learn more about them. You get like it picks up immediately where the first book left off. Like the first book ends on a cliffhanger, and then this one immediately picks straight back up from where that left off. Like there's no time gap whatsoever. You immediately just jump into it, and it answers every single question that you had from the first book. Every question that you had about Amethyst and her life and her memories and what she's been through as a child is answered in this. Every single question that you had about the events of the first one is answered. And any new questions that you have get answered. I think that the ending of it was a little bit anticlimactic. Like you spend two books tracking this person down, like someone down, and the way that it ends, like for me personally, I wanted to see more of that. I wouldn't have minded if it was like 50 pages longer just to see more of that. Like the redemption, the revenge come to fruition on it, but like it is what it is. But like overall, I think this was a brilliant book to end the year on, and that brought my total to 22. And I'm very proud of myself for that. So my goal for this year is 22 books. I have already started. I have read one book, which was Leo, the fifth book in the Daughters of the Shadow series, which redeemed Kate again. It wasn't as good as Ash or Bo, but it was still pretty freaking good. And then I am going to leave off with this by saying, please follow me on Fable if you want my reviews and more like in depth and cohesive conversations about it. Follow me there. I am currently in a book club. I read I Will Break You because of a book club, and then I joined a different book club. But please follow me there. I always have a link tree in my description with all of my socials. I might not post on a lot of them very often or at all, but I am still on them. So you can follow me everywhere. Like I post on Instagram very rarely, but I am there. So please follow me places. Um, like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want, but no pressure. And I'm going to leave off with a dob, I guess, because it's a book thing. So drink is a mango loco monster in this cup that my mum got for me. I'm gonna say right now, I've never owned a Labubu. I never wanted to own a Labubu, and now I own this cup. Um, I love it though. So that's drink. Outfit is a black bodysuit with black joggers and black cut. And then book is Credence. That is what I am currently reading. I am this far into it, and I have been reading it for a couple of days. I love it so far. It's a bit of a slow burn in terms of like what's happening, and I mean, of course, it's going to be she's 17 years old, but I'm still enjoying it so far, and I'm glad that I am reading it. So, and I've owned it for a little while. It's one of the physical books I'm going to move on to. But yeah, with all of that being said, I will see you when I see you, maybe for a quarter thing, if I figure out what to name them, maybe for a half year. I don't know yet, but I will be around at some point. Bye.